In the hush money trial, the prosecution charged the former president of engaging in a criminal conspiracy and cover-up to conceal a sexual scandal prior to the 2016 presidential election. It was election fraud, pure and simple, an attorney said to the jury in the opening remarks of the landmark New York trial on Monday. Presenting the defense, Mr. Trump's attorney said that his client was innocent and that it was lawful to attempt to sway an election. He went on, "He is wrapped in innocence. Before he was elected president in 2016, Mr. Trump is accused of attempting to conceal a $130,000, £104,500 payment to porn star Stormy Daniels. In addition to contesting the allegations of having a sexual contact with Ms. Daniels, whose actual name is Stephanie Clifford, he has entered a not guilty plea to 34 charges of manipulating business records. Each side presented its argument to the jury at the beginning of the second week of the first-ever criminal trial of a former U.S. president in Manhattan. David Pecker, the tabloid publisher who was the first witness, also made a brief appearance on the witness stand and will continue on Tuesday. The court was informed by prosecutor Matthew Colangelo that former attorney and personal friend of Mr. Trump, Michael Cohen, collaborated with Chief Financial Officer Alan Weisselberg of the Trump Organization to cook the books on Mr. Trump's orders. The prosecution claimed that 3 different types of records, invoices, ledger entries, and checks, were falsified as part of the plot to conceal how Cohen was paid back for the payment to Ms. Daniels. Mr. Colangelo told the jury that Mr. Trump had stated in his company records that such payments were for legal services pursuant to a retainer agreement with Mr. Cohen. Those were lies, the prosecutor declared. Crucially in this instance, he stated that Mr. Trump was driven to offer the payment in order to keep voters unaware of the purported meeting with Ms. Daniels. The prosecution claimed that this cover-up amounted to a second felony since it interfered with the election. This made the accusation of fabricating company documents into a more serious felony rather than a lesser misdemeanor. They said that Mr. Trump's campaign had been shaken by the infamous Access Hollywood tape, which came to light a few weeks before the 2016 election and featured him boasting about being able to have sex with anybody due to his fame. The defendant and his campaign staff were deeply concerned that it would irreparably damage his standing with female voters in particular, Mr. Colangelo stated in court. However, Mr. Colangelo claimed that the issue brought about by the tape was made worse when Ms. Daniels came forth a day later, claiming to have had a sexual encounter with Mr. Trump. Mr. Colangelo told the jury that the public revelation would have been devastating to his campaign, so at Trump's direction Cohen negotiated a deal. The prosecution claims that Mr. Cohen and Mr. Pecker, the former CEO of American Media Inc., the company that runs the National Enquirer, talked about how to keep it quiet. In contrast, the defense's answer was rather straightforward. Mr. Blanche seemed determined to portray Cohen, the prosecution's lead witness, as an unreliable former worker who had a grudge against the former president. Regarding Cohen, Mr. Blanche stated, "He's an admitted liar, a convicted felon, and a convicted perjurer." He also focused on Ms. Daniels, claiming that her claims had brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars. She is a witness, but the defense attorney advised the jurors to ignore her. He continued, calling the instances of purportedly fake records, 34 pieces of paper, that had nothing to do with his client. In response to the prosecution's case for election meddling, Mr. Blanche insisted that his client did not violate any laws, even though it was his intention to influence voters. Attempting to sway an election is perfectly acceptable, Mr. Blanche declared. It's called democracy. Although the trial is anticipated to go on for around 6 more weeks, legal experts believe that opening comments hold special significance in influencing jurors' opinions. In a case like this, veteran federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani told the BBC, "You need to start out strong." Mr. Rahmani pointed out that with 2 attorneys on the jury, the prosecution's attempts to turn this into an election meddling case might be difficult. It's obvious that the papers were fraudulent business records, but proving they were used to conceal or promote a campaign finance donation is a more challenging legal defense, and in my judgment, they will need to go above and beyond that. He stated, "This is going to come down to Michael Cohen, and whether or not his testimony supports his prior statements and whether or not he has the documentation to support them."